This is your World War III update. The price of gold is hurtling towards $3,000 an ounce. $3,000 an ounce. Can you hear that in the distance? Oh, oh, oh. Sorry, Wolf of Wall Street moment. My friends, this is bad. The market is about to crash. The economy is in the pisser, and what this means is that the purchasing power of your dollar is half of what it was only 5 years ago. As tantalizing as the number 3,000 might be, it actually does not bode well for the CPI. It does not bode well for your purchasing power. If the price of gold has nearly doubled in 5 years, what that means is that the price of everything has nearly doubled in 5 years. The final resting place of all inflation is in precious metals and commodities. Eventually it works its way, and we haven't even deflated the equities bubble yet. Wait till the stock market bubble pops, and that's when you're going to see this thing go who knows how high. 4,000, 5,000. It's going to take tens of trillions of dollars to get there, but it very well could if the market deflates. I think after 3,000, we're going to see some kind of fear of missing out grip people. And it's just incredible to watch this all unfold as gold hits escape velocity and really does liberate itself from the clutches of the global gold brokers and the market manipulators. They've lost control, okay? They have lost control of the system. This is it. This is exactly what you would expect. You would expect a 40% rise in gold prices to happen throughout the course of a year. But because it's time released, every week a little trickle upwards. I mean, take a look at this. It's a steady staircase. This is not some parabolic NVIDIA, Bitcoin, a God candle type affair. This is something that, there's a little bit of rise and there's a bit of retracement. There's a little sideways and there's a little rise, and it's a steady staircase of growth. And that is exactly the worst kind of thing you want, because it's almost when you see a shock, that's when it kind of wakes people up. But if it's gradual, people don't notice. And you'll notice that they're not talking about this at all in the mainstream. Now, you might be sitting there saying, Nate, we don't hold any gold. We're barely just scraping by. And this still pertains to you. I mean, the only gold I own is like this fractional, novelty stuff that I've reviewed on the channel where you break a piece off. This is like a 25-gram thing. So you break a piece off, you pay a high premium for it. But when I bought this, it was half the price, okay? So, who's laughing now? It doesn't matter because the value is still the same. The $2,000 I might have paid for that years ago is now worth $4,200 Canadian. That's a bad thing, okay? That means that, people got to stop thinking that $100 is a lot of money. I hear people, like, they come to the website and they're like, oh, $20 for a thing of freeze-dried food. It's like, it's 2025. It's the current year. That phrase only makes sense as it pertains to economics. It's the current year. $100 is nothing nowadays. It really isn't. I mean, unfortunately, the actual wages are not reflected in this. The wages have yet to catch up to the actual inflation that's happening, and the system is about to break. Okay, the only thing holding up the system at this point in time are the tech giants. NVIDIA, they're probably going to make OpenAI go public. They'll probably do SpaceX to go public. And every time it seems like the system's going to break, they're going to make another big company go public, and that's going to try to raise all ships in the market. But it can only work for so long. This is very, very bad. Now, we're going to talk about the wars and everything else, but understand the reason why the price of gold is rising is multifold, but the crux of it all is very simple. The final resting place of inflation is in commodities. It's in stuff, okay? And one of the most condensed form of material value known to man is gold, platinum, silver, palladium, precious metals. Eventually it's going to work its way into the less precious metals like copper and things of that nature, and we're going to see another commodity super cycle. That's at least what history dictates, although we're living in unprecedented times, so anything can happen. But in terms of what's causing this, people are chalking it up to the tariffs. Well, the price of gold was rising before the tariffs, okay? I think it's mostly to do with all of that QE and money printing that went on back in 2021. Lots of it went into the stock market. Lots of it went into crypto and other more frivolous endeavors, and now it's finally making its way into the gold market, okay? This is to do with the arbitrage trade happening between the LBMA and the COMEX market. It's due to China stockpiling gold like you haven't seen before. I'm sure the Saudis and anybody with half a brain in the Middle East who has a lot of money is stockpiling as much gold as they can. China is getting their insurance companies to purchase gold now as a hedge because, of course, there's no counterparty risk. It's one of the most incorruptible items known to man, and it's always going to increase in value or retain its value in real terms. It's the Russians who are now trading in gold. It's the BRICS nations who are now trading in gold. It's the global decoupling, and it is a harbinger for the end of the US dollar, among many other things that are geopolitical in nature. The fact that the war in Russia and Ukraine is still raging, and you still have the potential for the war in the Middle East to flare up, as well as a war with Iran on the horizon, which, of course, the Iran bone is connected to the China bone, is connected to the Russia bone, and everything is interconnected in this increasingly deglobalized world. So this is a significant number, whether it's meaningful to you personally on a financial level or not. Now, my personal investment of choice is things, material things that either have a renewable aspect to them, like a solar panel or something that is going to that I can use as a tool to make me money or to potentially, hopefully, yield some kind of return, or physical stuff, raw prepper stuff, food, water, shelter, guns, medicine, things of that nature. We recently, on a video that I released over the weekend, right after the video that we released about inflation, where I talk about the multitude of factors that are actually suppressing inflation. So if you think inflation is bad now, wait till they do the unipolar rug pull, okay? It is going to get very, very ugly. But things like freeze-dried food, for example, this is going to be post-apocalyptic currency. And I've always referred to, I was one of the first people that talked about how freeze-dried food is actually, it's almost a better holder of value than is gold, because the price of food is only going to increase. As you have global decoupling, as you have increased prices for the inputs into agriculture, be they pesticides, fertilizer, and yes, pesticides, like it or love it, it's a thing. It's something that we have to contend with. Just the cost of land in general, the cost to run equipment, the cost of fuel to run the tractors, the cost of steel that it takes to make the tractors. All of these inputs are only going to increase in price. And then you layer on top of that government regulation, bird flu, culls, and all the rest. The prices of things are only going to skyrocket. So the thing that can retain its value the most is some non-perishable food source. And when you look at the price of beef alone, or chicken, and you compare the price now to what it was, even 5 years ago, the price in some cases has already doubled, okay? So, and in some cases much higher than that, and I expect that there's going to come a time when something like this is just $100. I mean, there was a time when something like this was like $6. This is beef stroganoff and noodles, freeze-dried meal. Now this is getting close to $20, okay? $20 for a meal, $20. That's crazy, man. When I first started prepping, I could go in and I could buy a thing of rice and chicken in Canadian dollars at the wholesale sports at the time. This was like $20. $20 for a can of rice and chicken. Nowadays, this is going to run you $50. In some cases, I've seen it high as $70. I think we sell it for $50. But that's money, okay? Above and beyond that, money is grains. It's rice, beans, mylar bags. These things are always going to have some sort of value. Now, is it going to make you money in the same way a stock would? No. But when you really look at, are people making money in the stock market? Did you know that the price of gold has actually beat the S&P 500 since the last 20 years? The price of gold has risen nearly 600%, and I think the S&P 500 is something like 5. It's close to that anyways. But people think, they're looking at their 401ks and they think they're getting richer. You're not getting richer because the purchasing power has been greatly diminished. It's all an illusion, just like changing the name on the map of the Gulf of whatever, as if that is going to make your life materially more meaningful or different. It is all bread in circuses. And you know what I see? I see people like this, they're going to, they're paying thousands of dollars for these tickets to these games. Do I have the video around here somewhere? Oh yeah, right here. Take a look at this. How much did you pay for your Super Bowl ticket, they ask? Well, let's see.
$30,000.
About $15,000.
$30,000. And I guarantee you, if I was a betting man, most of these people don't have more than 1 week's worth of food, which is about $1,000 worth of food in some places today. I guarantee they don't have any more than a few days worth of food in their homes, yet they're spending $30,000 on some bullshit. Some guys throwing around a ball around a field for what? I mean, even if your team wins, does that change your life in any? It gives you an hour of pep, and then you get to hold your head higher, as if you accomplished something for the rest of the year. I mean, I just don't understand the tribalistic nature. I get that there's some camaraderie in the actual sportsmanship for the guys playing the sport, and maybe there's a health component, but none of these people are healthy. Okay, all the people in the stands don't look anything like the guys on the field.
$9,000. I heard my boss was coming. I had to come put on a trunk. You know what I'm saying? $3,900.
How much
Even $3,900 is what?
did you pay for your ticket?
$8,000.
$500
a ticket,
Damn.
which I think was decent.
Once in a lifetime deal.
We sitting down here for 5 stacks.
How'd you finesse the ticket?
Incredibly grateful for my father, Dr. Darren Kramer over here.
We rich.
Bro.
We rich. Wow. I'll be darned, man. Wow. This is exactly what you would expect during a societal collapse. You would expect them to spend all their money on bread and circuses, and then when the shit hits the fan, they're going to bitch because the government didn't come to help them enough. Oh man, sometimes I wish I was an NPC. I wish I was one of these politically charged NPCs who just had blinders on and only viewed one sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. My life would be a lot easier. You remember when I told you that Trudeau actually won the last round of the tariff war, and everybody was like, what are you talking about? Trump clearly won that round. Listen, I told you, Trudeau wants a trade war. Do you understand that? The Canadians, we had hundreds of pages of tariffs ready to go. Last Tuesday, it was ready to go. I don't even think Trump wrote anything down. It was just the ostentatious bluster. It was pure belligerence on his part. In an attempt, he has this inveterate way of trying to negotiate where he puts an aggressive foot forward. He tries the door in the face tactic. Usually it works, but he forgot who he was messing with. He's messing with the liberals who want nothing more than an authoritarian regime. They're willing to bankrupt their country and their countrymen if it means they can stay in power. Do you understand? Okay, listen to this, okay? This is what a lot of people don't understand. You know, in the Baltic states right now, they've basically, maybe you don't know this, they've just disconnected themselves from the Russian power grid. And they're like, yay, now we get to pay 3 times the amount for natural gas. It's all about a rally around the flag. They don't care if they impoverish Canadians. They don't care if they create immiserating circumstances for all of us. All they care about is retaining power, and they do that by having this rally around the flag, this focus on Trump as the enemy, because for better or for worse, a lot of it is derangement syndrome, but there's some justifiable concerns with Donald Trump from a Canadian point of view. They're going to leverage that in order to scaremonger their way into winning another election. And take a look at the polling. The polls are suddenly up in the favor of the Liberals. Okay, it says here it's down 3%, but this was way lower before. Okay, so understand that the Liberals are starting to pick up steam once again as a result of this whole tariff fiasco. So Trudeau wants nothing more. This is why they're not going to give an inch. People say, oh, well, yeah, but he's going to put guys on the border. They already agreed to that. I got to say it 50,000 times for people. I showed you all the receipts. They already agreed to all that shit. So they're going to give a couple $100 million extra dollars. Trudeau doesn't give a shit. Look, these new steel tariffs that they're going to impose, you can bet that Canada is going to respond in kind. And they're going to leverage this because once they start seeing that the Trump hate, again, whether it's legitimate or deranged, doesn't matter. I'm not making a political value statement here, so don't get all tribalistic on me, okay? I've been telling you guys how it is. I've been giving you guys the accurate predictions for years. Now, if you just come to the channel and you see the thumbnail and you read the title and you're going to be going, oh, you said the world was going to end. Never said the world was going to end. Never mind. I'm not evoking John McAfee today. I swore that I was not going to offend the women and children today, but sometimes I oughta. Anyways, that's what's going down. The Liberals want a trade war. They want a trade war, and they're not going to budge because for them it's a win-win. Okay, this is what Trump is probably perplexed by when he sees that the Canadians are unwavering in their demands. They're not willing to budge. They're going to continue to impose retaliatory tariffs, and they might even go a step further in terms of the severity because they don't give a shit. It benefits them. It benefits the current government, not only in getting people into some nanny state of codependency in which they're now dependent on some sort of government handout because the evil boogeyman Trump, right? And there's nothing Trump and his cronies want more than a scapegoat for the fact that the United States has been gluttonously living beyond its means for decades, as many in the West have, which is why all of the Western countries are the ones that are carrying the biggest amounts of debt. They don't care, okay? So both sides stand to gain something from playing hardball, even though the populations therein stand to lose. And of course, at the end of the day, Trump will put the blame on Canadians and will put the blame on Trump. That's the whole thing. So we have a situation where Western nations themselves are willing to shoot themselves in the foot if it means that they can retain power. That's what's going on here. And so in an attempt to keep the Conservatives out of power, the Liberals will take this thing, to the utter depths of disparity in terms of, the poverty that Canadians are going to face. So just get ready, man. It's gonna get ugly. As I said, the Estonians, Latvians, and Lithuanians, they're all excited about disconnecting from being free from Russian energy and natural gas and all that stuff. And now they can pay 3 times as much in LNG from their vassal leaders. But they're free, right? They're free, and they are free to make that decision. They are free. Now, Trump has recently said, he said that, it was supposed to, the end of the war was supposed to come in 24 hours. What are we on here? So January 20th, I think it's a little bit more than 24 hours, but I'm not a mathematician, so you can correct me if I'm wrong about that. The EU is currently in the midst of what appears to be some sort of embargo on Russian oil in the Baltic. And mark my words, eventually bullets are going to fly in the Baltic as a result of this. The Russians are going to have no other choice but to provide armed escort to their oil tankers in the Baltic Sea that are either being sunk by sabotage. One was sunk recently in I think it was the Koala that was sunk. It was this large oil tanker that just sunk in the Baltic Sea. This environmental catastrophe that you don't even hear about. Okay, they sunk that shit. Now, some people will say, well, this was the result of Russian incompetence and their inept technological engineering of these vessels that are operating illegally with no universal oversights or insurance or anything like that. But this very likely was an act of sabotage in some way, shape, or form, possibly even of a cyber attack nature. I'm not sure how connected these vessels are, but this is not something that is supposed to happen, and not as frequently as it's happening. Now, if the Russians determine and acknowledge foul play being afoot, then you can bet that they're going to retaliate. There is very much a war being waged in the Baltic. You don't hear about it. You hear little bits and pieces about how China might have run their anchor over a undersea cable. But now Russian undersea cables have been cut in recent days as well. And this is this back and forth thing happening behind the shadows. You're having a militarization in terms of Baltic, the Sentry campaign, which seeks to police the Baltic, which is international waterways, although NATO is now considering it a NATO lake. And of course, a lot of this oil is going to European countries, which means that there's European countries who are part of NATO who are also at the same time purchasing Russian oil and at the same time trying to enforce this pseudo-embargo on Russia that is preventing them from exporting their oil in this direction. So things are going to get very messy. So pay attention to this, because this could be the thing that really throws a wrench. And this is why Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they're building the barricades along their border with Russia. Remember, Russia is literally a stone's throw. They share the same border, okay? So, I mean, all of those countries would probably last a hot minute at best. If with a war with Russia, it would be over. In fact, this is why many of those countries are practicing evacuations from the country. Fortunately, their populations vary between 1 to 5 million. But I think Germany has pledged that they're going to be bringing in a rapid, what did they call it, a rapid action expedition force or something of 5,000 troops. 5,000 troops. Oh man, things are going to get spicy in the Baltic. This is where it's coming. We're already in 2025. And remember, they've been talking about 2026 to 2028 to when things are really going to fly off the handle. Okay? And most of the most conservative geopolitical pundits in the space are talking about a worldwide calamity at best back to 2028, at best, okay? And that would be where the conflict with China and the United States, that's when it reaches a fever pitch. But very much we'll see a flaring up with Russia and the United States, because nothing has been resolved yet, because they have no plan. They just said whatever they could to get elected. Now get a load of this. Alleged Russian unmanned aerial vehicles deceive Patriot systems. They fly uninterrupted over German military bases hosting Ukrainian troops. So the Russians have now confirmed that indeed there were drones flown over German military bases that are training Ukrainian troops, okay, and that these were able to evade the missile defense systems. Now, that's not to say that NATO doesn't have the means to shoot them down, but when you have an open airspace, you can't just be shooting things down because you accidentally shoot down a drone that looks like a Cessna plane or something, and that's not the PR anybody wants. But we have now confirmed that Russia is flying unspecified drones over the Schwesing Air Base, where Ukrainian troops are training on Patriot missile defense systems. It's happening, okay? This is the Koala that was sunk just outside of, well, I guess this is bigger than it looks, but outside of St. Petersburg. That one sunk, and it was due to some explosion that happened on board. The Russian Foreign Ministry spoke about relations with the United States. After the change of the head of the White House, the deputy head of the diplomatic department said that relations between the country are teetering on the brink of rupture. Now, remember what I said when I told you that when Trump takes office, it could go one way or another. They could strike some sort of deal that the prospect of striking a deal was perhaps better than if it was Kamala who won. However, if things go bad, things could get really bad really, really fast under Trump just because of the way that he negotiates, okay? So now we have a situation where the United States and Russia are on the brink of breaking their diplomatic relations altogether. And as far as I know, there still ain't a Russian ambassador in the United States, okay? So that's where we're at right now. There still is no Russian ambassador. Now they're talking about the imposition of potential peace plans. There's increased NATO activity in Poland, like a lot more activity in Poland, which might in fact suggest that NATO is getting ready to execute some sort of peacekeeping mission, which is what this plan entails. So basically, this is the tentative initial plan that Team Trump allegedly proposed. Ukraine withdraws from Russian territory from Kursk. They accept Russian sovereignty over the annexed territories in which there's trillions of rare earth minerals that can be mined. The front line is frozen in an Easter ceasefire on April 20th, good old 420, as Elon would say, and European and UK soldiers police the demilitarized buffer zone. Now, of course, the Russians aren't going to admit to this. The only way they would admit to this, I think, is if they were desperate to buy more time, because all this means is they can say that Ukraine will be banned from joining NATO. Again, that's in name only. It's really in name only when you're arming Ukraine to the teeth with what are progressively and increasingly your more advanced weaponry. Ukraine is more interoperable with NATO than most NATO countries, okay? So the Russians can't roll the dice on any sort of Minsk 2.0 agreement because they know there's a good chance that the treaty will be violated and they'll be right back where they were when this whole thing started. Now, it really, a lot of this depends on what you believe in terms of who's actually winning the conflict. The Russian advance is still incredibly gradual, and even the Russians admit that it will take them 10 years to get to Kiev at this pace. If you're talking about, in the single-digit square miles on some days per day of advance. Whereas, of course, the Ukrainians are still holding strong in Kursk, which is largely due to the topography of the region, which is so advantageous for them. But nonetheless, it depends on who you believe as to who's going to be exhausted first. Some people say the U.S. is out of not the weapons platforms, but they're out of the low to mid-tier weaponry that they've provided Ukraine in terms of ammunition. They only have so many ATACMS. Could they give them JASMs and Tomahawk missiles that have an increased range and increased explosive capability? Yes, but then of course that would be a very significant escalation in the conflict. I think this is Trump talking about, that was Trump talking about the situation with Gaza and Hamas, which could flare up by the weekend. This is the Russians doing another nuclear drill, okay? Just your run-of-the-mill nuclear weapons drill, which, of course, there are no more nuclear treaties. They're still in good faith, I believe, notifying the Americans of some of the maneuvering of their weapon systems, but by and large, they're not obligated to anymore. Trump is ready to double down on Russian sanctions, according to Keith Kellogg. And remember, this was the guy who was saying that he would advocate, and I believe also Mike Waltz was also saying, was it Mike Waltz or Tim Waltz? One of the Waltzes, the guy who's the Secretary of National Security, saying that they're more than willing to, in fact, provide Ukraine with longer range weapons. But again, this could be the classic door-in-the-face negotiating tactic utilized by Trump. So I guess we'll have to see. But so far, it doesn't look good. Kaliningrad is also becoming more isolated as a result of the Baltic decoupling. You have France sending fighter jets to Ukraine. All of this stuff, which would have been big news, is no longer big news. Even over the weekend, there were reports that a Orezhnik was fired once again. That is the long-range hypersonic, ICBM-like intermediate-range ballistic missile, which really it's an ICBM, depending on which continent you're talking about. But the one that they fired and shot right after Trump won the election as a signal to Trump, hey, we remember when you backed out of that intermediate range ballistic missile treaty, and we're just advising you that we also have backed out of that treaty. Apparently, they attempted to do it once again, although since this story originated, the Russians have denied it, but they claim that it was intercepted or it had failed over Russian territory and actually fell back onto Russian territory. So I guess we're never going to know, right? But normally you would see something like that streaking through the sky like we did from Kazakhstan when the other one fired. Russia has been incurring drone strikes deep, deep into their territory. This is Murmansk. This is on the outermost tip of their Arctic operations. And so that means that Ukraine had to fly a drone across this entire landscape from Moscow, some 1,500 kilometers, or from Kiev, I should say, to that location. Now, why they would be targeting that deep when, really the only thing up here is this is well outside the operational theater. This is something that you would think NATO would have a vested interest in seeing that sort of targeting in that region, and that can only mean one thing, is that they are indeed doing intelligence gathering for NATO, okay? They are doing a probing operation and testing all the potential weak points for the inevitable attempt at a decapitation strike. Because I have to repeat this fact over and over again for people who are new to the channel. Every time Ukraine sends a drone into Russia, it's collecting data. Whether it's shot down or whether it makes it to its target, it's now collected data on Russia's air defense grid. And all of that data, you can bet, is being sent back to NATO or sent back to the United States or whoever the auspices of this war is under at this stage in the game. That information is being incorporated into the larger data set that ultimately will be used if a war with Russia is actually deemed inevitable. And of course, this puts Russia at a great disadvantage if it ever was to come to a full-blown World War III situation. While it's true that the Russians would get a lot off the ground and we would probably incur a lot of collateral damage, now you got Trump talking about Star Wars programs and putting lasers in space, and all of this stuff they've been working on for the longest time. The only reason why the US government is funding SpaceX, it's not to go to Mars. Okay, maybe it has something to do with this asteroid that's supposed to possibly, maybe, likely not hit Earth in 2032. Maybe it's something about that. It's about weaponizing space, okay? Understand that just like the price of gold, there is a truth to things that only gets revealed slowly. And that's what's been happening over the past few years, is that the truth of the actual arms race that is occurring, whether it's in AI or whether it's in space, is slowly seeping out now. And there was the controversy last year where both the United States and Russia were each accusing each other of weaponizing space. And there's truth to that. Both sides are trying to do that. The Russians are trying to work out ways that they can take out American-based satellites, and it appears as though the Americans are looking at ways that they can actually weaponize various satellites. Now, both sides are accusing each other of the same, so we're never going to know, but understand that this is all happening. What we hear is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? So, quit pretending. All of these... this idea that Elon Musk, he's a great guy and he just wants to brain chip you so that you can walk if you lose your legs in World War III and all this stuff, man. if it hasn't become abundantly clear what kind of crazy psyop that is. I mean, the guy just tweets 24/7. I can't see him being in control of his account and actually having any sort of insight into the advancement of his companies. Clearly, he's a great entrepreneur who can scale things vertically. He can build companies from the ground up. He can go back to first principles, and that is where his success comes from. It's not from, being the guy who is actually inventing the stuff. He's the guy who knows how to run a business, and he likes to tweet a lot. And he had a lot of people convinced, but people are starting to wake up to it, that this entire panoptical system that is ushered in under his watch is everything that they've been railing against. The WEF, and you're not gonna own anything, and you're gonna be happy, and that's exactly what they're pushing with the self-driving cars that are gonna drive you. Why would you buy a car? As Elon says, you're only using your car for like 8 hours out of the week, actual driving time in the car. So you don't need why burden yourself with stuff, Why, Airbnb, the sharing economy. It's all part and parcel of bringing us towards a situation where we will own nothing and we will be happy. And Bitcoin's a part of that because, you can track every single transaction with Bitcoin, where the same can't be said for something like gold or silver or even cold hard cash that nobody uses anymore. Anyway, Zelensky is getting desperate also, and he's saying, let's do a deal. We will drop our pants and we will be your vassal state, and you can strip mine us of anything you want. Just give us some more weapons. So that's what's going on. Yeah. Now, there were some rumors that the U.S. was going to send the mother of all bombs to Israel. I would say where there's smoke, there's fire. This is from the German news agency. Some call it a tabloid, Bild, but they've been correct about a lot of things before as well. And I would say where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a good chance that they're going to get the what do you call it? The GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator version, which is a bunker busting version. This is an airburst version. I can't remember the exact terminology. I believe it's massive ordnance airburst. And this is the biggest conventional bomb in the U.S. arsenal. It has a 11-ton yield, which compared to a nuclear bomb, the smallest nuclear bomb, is only like 1/100th. If you compare this to like a Davy Crockett, it's 1/100th. That's not in terms of the actual overall devastation, but in terms of the explosive power, it still pales in comparison to a nuclear weapon. The problem is, in order for Israel to leverage this, they need to have a way to deploy it. Now, you can deploy it on an F-15, I believe. You can maybe deploy one, but it would be very awkward to deploy, and I don't even know. It's technically possible that the F-15 could carry the actual weight and the payload, but whether or not you could rig something up where it actually could deploy it is another story, and do so efficiently and then still have the range that it's going to need to get to its location in Iran, because you're not getting something like this for Palestine or the Gaza Strip or even Lebanon. You don't need a bomb like this, okay? They have the 2,000-pound bunker-busting bombs, which are more than sufficient and have proven to be more than sufficient and destructive for anything you could possibly need in areas that are usually largely densely populated with civilians, okay? Now, the rhetoric between Iran and the United States has been percolating. It has been heating up under the surface. We've had a lot of rumors and conjecture about Iran allegedly preparing to assassinate Trump, utilizing drones and all this stuff. And they're really trying to spread this, what we can only presume is disinformation at this point in time, to try to get Iran into a war with Israel. Now, over the weekend, Hamas allegedly was in Tehran to meet with Khamenei, and of course is the Ayatollah, And the IDF pulled out of the Netzarim axis on Sunday, and now they're talking about how at least Hamas is saying that they're going to back out of the negotiations because Israel is not abiding by the peace deal, the treaty. And not the treaty, but the détente, the ceasefire deal. And the Israelis are saying the converse. They're saying, no, it's actually you who is not abiding by it. And now Trump is saying, well, if you guys can't agree on something, all hell is going to break loose by Saturday. If all of the hostages are not returned by Saturday, all hell is going to break loose. Okay, now whether you want to take Trump on his word at this point, I think people are starting to less and less so take Trump on his word. Because again, when you say that you're going to end the war in 4 hours and you don't, now yes, a lot of people, gave him a pass there because they knew he was speaking more figuratively in the sense that he's going to be able to do it in a short period of time relative to the previous administration, sure. But, with whether it's the tariffs and these threats and the fact that they really got nothing new out of the temporary tariff negotiations, and just there's a multitude of things that Trump says but never actually acts on. So I would be surprised at this point in time, which is not to say that, they couldn't pull the trigger, but they got to be careful. They got to really be careful because what Doge is doing right now, and, they control the executive branch, the House and the Senate. They got Elon Musk and big balls in there rummaging through all of the financials. But they got to be careful because the pendulum always swings in the other direction. And if you push people too much, you can push them too far. And a lot of those people who are on the fence, who might have voted for Trump, might actually move in the other direction, okay? So they have to play it safe. Now, I understand the blitzkrieg approach. They're just doing this scattershot approach where they're trying to get as much done as possible because they think they only have a couple years until the midterm elections to actually do something and achieve something. Whatever it is they're trying to achieve, you can bet that it will be in the interest of some elite somewhere and not you as a individual whose median income is somewhere between $50,000 to $60,000 in the United States at best. It's not going to be in your interest. It'll be in their interest. It's just who gets to play sanctimonious. That's what it's all about. Who gets to be the one who pretends to be the rebel and upends the system through populism. But you could have a resurgence in left-wing populism, which is going to see whatever sort of perceived, either real or perceived, tyranny from the right, and it's going to raise said tyranny, okay? It is going to escalate things. It is going to be more authoritarian. So in 2028, don't be surprised if right now they start to groom somebody on the left that is going to be able to appeal to the leftist populace. And mark my words, when this economy crashes, and when gold starts rocketing beyond 3,000, there's going to be a resurgence of we are the 99%, okay? And they're going to appeal to that. So the left has no problem right now with, just like Trudeau, has no problem creating these immiserating circumstances that are going to just make people's lives miserable because they know that then they're going to have a common enemy. They can point the finger at Trump and the right. Both the right and the left bear an equal amount of responsibility for these things, so don't get it twisted. They're all on the same team, but if you want to play, I know a lot of people like sports and mindless distractions, so hey, I'm not going to convince you. Trump says if all the hostages are not released by Saturday at noon, ceasefire should be called off and all hell will break loose. I'm not sure if we pitched our new emergency food variety subscription box. Guys, if you want to, stock up on food, on freeze-dried food, on the highest quality stuff, go and check out the food subscription. It is $297 Canadian. You can get it every 2 weeks, every month, or every 3 months. You know, I would say 5 years ago, that price probably would have been more like 175 bucks Canadian, but the price of food has skyrocketed. So just for perspective, you get a variety of different things with that. So in this month's offering, we have some Marcopia freeze-dried smoothie. We have the Happy Yak Pad Thai. These are all top-tier brands. I don't do the 30-day shitty-wise stuff that you get from Costco that might cost you 100 to 200 bucks and it says 50 to 100 servings in it. That is slop. I would not feel good selling people that stuff. We don't make good margins on this, but we do what we can. Beef stroganoff with noodles. We have some pasta primavera. We have some Peak Refuel, sweet pork and rice. Lots of high quality protein. Macaroni and cheese from Mountain House, which is actually really good. Granola. We got some cans of breakfast skillet, so you get cans of stuff every month as well. And we make sure that everything is commensurate value from month to month, and we use an AI algorithm to help us randomly select a variety of foods that is going to be more or less within $5 margin of error, the same amount. So you're getting a condensed value cheaper than what you would pay for all these things individually every single month, and you get it delivered right to your doorstep. And what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to basically try out new things and just diversify your food pantry. And again, it's all money. So just like you pay a premium for freeze-dried food, you pay a premium for this fractional gold stuff, which actually the premium on these combi bars and these types of things, it's not as much as you would think. It's almost equivalent to the premium you'd pay on like a gold eagle, like an American coin or a Canadian maple leaf gold coin. But you know, it's fractional, so you can break off a piece. So there is that aspect to it. So the premium you pay, oftentimes, if you can, you know, refrain from eating it before the apocalypse, you're going to actually, over time, get your money back, just in terms of the value of the stuff increasing in price as they kill off all the birds and try to force us into eating bugs. Lots of weird stuff going on at the White House. This is Khamenei, the Ayatollah. This was unprovoked, or seemingly, which tells us that there's a lot going on in the back channels between Iran and the United States that doesn't meet the eye. There very likely is going to be a flare-up in hostilities, and the Iranians are on edge right now, extremely on edge. They're waiting for shit to hit the fan. And this is why Khamenei is saying one must not negotiate with a government like the US government, despite Trump's apparent conciliatory language that he's using towards the Iranian situation. They're not buying it. This is something that was given from Benjamin Netanyahu to Donald Trump. This is a golden pager. And this is just weird, you know? I mean, for a variety of reasons. Never mind the fact that many people view this as an actual war crime, what they did with the pager attack, for a variety of reasons. I mean, it could have fell into the wrong hands, a kid could have had the pager, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It could have malfunctioned, and people could have had these things on airplanes, and, you know, all of the moral and ethical reasons aside, just gifting this to someone is weird, you know? Like, why would you give that to Trump? Was Trump involved in the operation? Maybe. Anyways, it's weird, and this is pretty cringy. It's all pretty cringy at this point. It's all getting a little out of control. Then you have the golden pager on the desk. Is that a warning? Some people are saying it's warning Trump, don't mess around, or you're next. I don't think so. But the obsequious manner in which Trump seems to pander to Netanyahu and his buddies makes you wonder. China's central bank is buying more gold as prices hit records. Also, insurance companies in China are now stocking the stuff. Everybody's buying gold. Everybody is buying gold right now. Amazon, for the first time, I believe they exceeded the profits of Walmart. And the problem is that the amount of workers that Amazon has, I believe it's 1.1 million in the United States compared, and that's including their couriers and their drivers, compared to Walmart's 1.6 million. And that doesn't include all the externalities around a Walmart, like the gas stations and all the other sort of residual business that happens as a result of setting up a Walmart in a town. I mean, it's crazy to say that, there was a time when we were, worried about mom and pops, and now people are worried about the Walmarts going away. But automation is, in fact, destroying the workforce, and it's making people like Jeff Bezos increasingly wealthy. So the wealth is going to continue to get concentrated at the top through an automation model, and the elites know this. The elites don't want a pitchfork revolution, and they know that will come unless they're willing to, give up some of their wealth. They have to be willing to concede some of it to kind of keep the pitchforks at bay. They're willing to they want to maintain their privilege. If they want, I should say, the smart ones, if they want to maintain their privilege, this is why you see all these elites pushing for universal basic income, because they know it's the only way. And even Jordan Peterson, who's, for the most part, I wouldn't say a hardline right-winger, at least not in every respect, but in terms of economics, he's a little bit more centrist, because he also realizes that whole Pareto principle, the idea that 20% of the population stands to gain 80% of the returns, and increasingly more so, that eventually that creates disequilibrium in the system, and it creates a situation which just begets some kind of armed revolution. And so they have to buy people off to prevent this. I can still remain a billionaire, but maybe not a trillionaire. You know what I mean? Unless the money becomes so worthless that, a trillion is what 100 billion used to be. AI continues to hurtle towards artificial general and artificial super intelligence, in fact, and it's looking like that's going to happen likely in the next couple years. At worst, at best, it's probably going to happen this year, or at least what we're told. Okay, so they likely have already achieved something, which they were talking about people quitting years ago because they thought that the thing was alive, okay, and they thought that there was actually some sort of sentience in the system somewhere, and it was deceiving people. So, considering what the advancements that have been made in the past couple of years, from ChatGPT 3 to O3 Mini and ChatGPT 5, which is coming out, I imagine that what they truly have is quite terrifying to a lot of people, which is why even whether it's Google Gemini or Anthropic or OpenAI, those are the big three, you're having a lot of people resign because they're concerned about what they're developing. And of course, now you have OpenAI with the Stargate thing and them, hooking it up to the nukes. And so I mean, it's all just coalescing onto the same endpoint, the terminal endpoint in time. And let's just hope it's a bang and not a whimper, but I think it's going to be a whimper. This is a chart of the commodity cycles, okay? So these are commodity super cycles where, the market kind of ebbs and flows between like stock market rallies and equities markets and commodities markets. When the equities markets are riding sky high, typically the commodities suffer, because who wants to invest in stuff when people are speculating about forward earnings? So right now we're in an equities bubble, and lots of the actual resources are being extremely devalued. I mean, consider what it's going to take to build out this AI infrastructure of the future and this renewable smart grid and all this. With, you're going to need so much copper and silver, yet these things are at, I'm not going to say record lows, but relative to everything else and the price that they should be, they're extremely undervalued. Even oil is extremely undervalued. No matter how much oil they find from this point forward, and no matter how big the straw that they suck it with, and how efficient the capabilities they are in their extraction process, The fact is, 7 billion people are trying to just achieve one fraction of our standard of living. And if those 7 billion people all maybe achieved 1/10 of our average per capita energy expenditure, you're talking about the price of oil tripling just on the basis of that alone, okay? So raw materials are extremely undervalued. And that is why right now, you can't really see this here, this should say 2025 down here, I believe. Or this could be, yeah, no, right here. Yeah, so we're 2020, so this is like 2030, so we're right here, okay? So this is the depression in terms of commodities prices. And so we're on the brink of another bull cycle in commodities being kicked off, of course, by gold. So this is why some people think the price of gold can still go up, 1,000%. I mean, it did in the 70s. Is it going to again? My only criticism of that approach is I'd say don't get too excited, because think of where those trillions and trillions of dollars are going to come from. Now, some people think that the stock market could collapse 80%. And in fact, for it to be at the median Shiller PE ratio, which is a fairly valued market, I believe it would have to drop something like 60% just to be at average. Now, we've went way lower than that historically after a crash. During the Great Depression, it was like, I don't know, I can't remember the number, it was like maybe 10 or something. And, right now it's like 40 and average is around 17. So it can go way lower than that as well. So if that equity bubble deflates, all of that liquidity and capital could flood its way into commodities and inflate the commodities bubble, which I don't think at this point in time is going to deflate, because the fact is we are running out of cheap stuff. It's getting more and more expensive to mine, whether it's gold, copper. Lithium's relatively new, so I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of new methods of extraction. But here we're talking about additional supply needed just by 2030 of copper. Copper is one of those, I wouldn't call it a precious metal, although you can buy copper coins, which it's kind of a waste of money because a pound of copper is like $4.50. So right now, an ounce of gold is about 100 times. Is it 100 or is it 1,000? 30 times 100, so it would be 30. Yeah, it's 100 times. So a price, 1 ounce of gold is 100 times the value of an ounce of silver, and an ounce of silver is approximately 100 times the value of an ounce of copper. And so this is where you get pennies, and at one time there was gold coins, and so gold, silver, bronze, that sort of thing. If you're, they say, what is second place is the first loser. It's true, because you're 100 times worth less than gold. Not historically, there's a gold-silver ratio of around 20, but you get what I'm saying. And it's even worse for copper. Okay, so I would not recommend stocking copper. It's not, and it's just so heavy, and where you're going to store it, and you need a big place to store it, and the transport you're going to lose on. So just don't bother with copper. If you're going to do the copper play, do it on paper. Invest in copper companies. That's not advice, but I will say that's probably something that is going to be ticking upwards. A lot of people are saying the gold mining stocks as well. But everything is going up. I mean, coffee, due to the droughts in Brazil, silver, gold, orange juice, everything's going up in price. What else should we talk about here? The LBMA is saying, don't worry, we got the gold. We're just, we're a little backed up right now. It takes a long time, even though some people are saying that that's not a good excuse, because historically they've been able to move large amounts of gold faster than they currently are. If you don't know what I'm talking about, gold is being repatriated to the United States from the London Exchange, which is, a lot of countries will store their gold in foreign exchanges for the purposes of security or trade. So you have a lot of countries who store their gold in London because they're worried about, maybe they're worried about a revolution or an upheaval, and they want to have, and they know that London is a safe place to store stuff, even though it isn't, because Venezuela found out a few years ago that, in fact, and I think this is part of the reason why gold is going up, because people don't trust the West anymore. They don't trust the dollar because, of course, the seizure of Russian assets, which correlated well with the increase in the price of gold. And they don't trust the West to hold on to their gold, which is why they're repatriating it. Now, why they're repatriating the gold from the LBMA to the United States? They're saying that there's more buyers here, and there's a better market here, and maybe there's an arbitrage trade happening where you can sell it for higher here than you can there, but I'm not entirely convinced of that. I think they know that the shit's going to hit the fan, and they're stockpiling as much of the stuff as they can. The national egg price continues to skyrocket. There's never been a better time to get into backyard chickens. The Indian rupee continues to tank against the dollar. Chinese gold trading activity explodes in early 2025. As you can see, completely unprecedented in scale. We're talking about 10 times what it was in the lows of 2018, 2019. The COMEX gold vault is filling up with gold. The average tariff rate that Trump is proposing is going to equate to that of the Great Depression. And of course, many people, many economists, I should say, believe that it was tariffs that actually caused the Great Depression, although there's kind of a chicken and the egg debate with respect to that. Again, we are going to see a trade war with the United States, and it's not going to be because of Trump's threats. It's going to be because the liberals benefit from it. The Arctic sea ice is at an all-time low for winter, and that is because the jet stream has largely broken down over North America. So all of that cold air that typically is contained within the Arctic has actually been pushed down into North America right now, not in the east for some reason, not in Europe, in Russia, but something, it likes North America for some reason, that cold weather. And so right now we are seeing record low temperatures. And I would advise anybody, if you want one of the warmest coats, let's just type in winter jacket here, okay? So we have the warmest coats in the world. These are not vanity purchases. These are actually like the warmest prepper jacket that money can buy, okay? They're expensive, but again, you're looking at, prices that maybe 10 years ago might have been half as much in real terms, but these things are just like, you can see by all the good ratings that they have. I've worn the same jacket for probably 8 years or so, and it maintains its loft. They're just the warmest jackets that money can buy. So if you're really cold right now, get yourself an outdoor survival Canada jacket made with natural materials that are built to last. And for all the tree huggers out there who say, oh, you're killing the animals, you're going to go through, when you buy fur, when you buy real fur, you're actually using a lot less because that real fur is going to last a lifetime. Instead of having to buy, 50 different pairs of gloves over the course of your life, you have one pair of real fur mitts, one goose down jacket that's going to last you 10 plus years. That actually leads to less consumption over time, not more. It looks like the broligarchs are arguing on Twitter over who's going to rule the world, I guess. Sam Altman and Elon Musk have this ongoing feud right now. Elon Musk accuses Sam Altman of not keeping OpenAI open source and wanting to profiteer off it. Well, I mean, it's saying like the pot calling the kettle black, but Anyways, Elon Musk made an unofficial offer to buy OpenAI for $100 billion or $97.4 billion. And Sam Altman countered saying that he'll buy Twitter for $9.74 billion. So it's kind of a burn there. And then Musk responded with swindler. So I'm not sure who won that round. Here's Trudeau trying to remain relevant. I don't even want to sit through this. Basically, he's talking about how AI is going to lead to misinformation and they need to crack down on it and blah, 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 blah. Fuck off. Okay, the asteroid thing. So this is kind of strange, all right? Now, I'm not sure if there is a universal standard or some sort of global like consortium of astronomers or who the officiating agency is that confirms a sighting. I'll have to look into it. But, you know, I got to thinking, like, if they knew an asteroid was coming, they would probably not want to panic the population, right? They would probably tell us, they would minimize it. They have to acknowledge it's there because you're going to have a lot of astronomers seeing it, but there might be debates over how big it is and what is the chance of a direct hit on Earth. Now, if the chance of a direct hit was incredibly high, would they tell us? Or would they minimize it? I think they would minimize it. Now, again, there's not much we can do about an asteroid hitting Earth. All we can presume is, I think one of the best case arguments for Elon Musk and his very large space shuttle is that they're getting ready to find a way to defeat this thing. And maybe, I mean, this likely isn't what happened. I give this like a 5% chance of being what's actually happening. But let's just say maybe the reason why they haven't gone full World War III yet is that all the nations of the world understand what's going on. The Chinese, the Russians, and Elon Musk, they all understand that this is a threat. Nobody wants to panic their population, so maybe they're working together at some high level in order to try to mitigate the problem by shooting or deflecting this asteroid. And they're going to continue to minimize it. But as we get closer to that date, and as this thing presumably gets closer to Earth, and I don't know how it works, if it's circling every year I presume that's how it works. But eventually, you know, we're going to find out if it is in fact going to hit Earth and they're trying to work out a way to covertly intercept it. Eventually, we're going to find out. What concerned me about this is that they started off by saying it was a 1% chance of a direct hit. Then they raised it to 1.6. Then they raised it to 2.3. And then they raised the size of it from 1 to 200 to 200 to 300, okay? And it's on December 22nd, 23rd. Now, if you're a Mayan calendar enthusiast, you know December 21st, what was it, 2012? Well, maybe the Mayans were off a little bit. Who knows? Who knows what's truly going to happen here? The other thing is that this could all just be bullshit, and they're going to use this as a way to try to bring in some other draconian social control regimen of some sort that has yet to be fully comprehended. It's hard to say. This could go in a variety of different ways, but they're telling us that there's a good chance, and a 1 in 43, how do you even determine that, you know? I mean, I guess they're looking at, I'm going to have to look into it a bit more. I presume that they have a variety of different trajectories like a hurricane, and then they conclude that on the basis of these possible trajectories, there's a probability of 2.3% chance of hitting. But you think that we would be a bit more accurate, you know? Anyways, something I'm not going to say prepare for, because you can't prepare for. I mean, if you're in the wrong city, I mean, the question is, as we approach that date, are they going to know what city it's going to hit? And is that going to lead to upheaval? Or are they going to tell us? Is it going to hit the ocean and create some kind of tsunami on the East Coast, or near some coast, which of course most coastlines in the world are populated by humans. So I guess we'll find out. We'll be the last to know, as per usual. Oh, and apparently Ozempic can make you go blind, as doctors sound the alarm over startling side effect. Gee, never expected that a drug that allowed you to eat whatever you wanted, no matter how bad, allowed you to also get skinny at the same time. And remember when I said that they're bringing in Pete Hegseth because he's the G.I. Joe guy? Well, that's what's happening, okay? So I'm not even going to show you the footage, but he's been uploading a lot of stuff to X and, you know, showing that you got to be tough, and, you know, they're trying to remasculate the American military. That's his sole purpose, is to basically get all the Call of Duty bros off the couch and wanting to defend their country again. But you can only do that if there's another 9/11 or something like that. So, you know, who knows? Who knows how they're going to make that happen on purpose? I'm sure they'll find a way. Anyways, guys, there it is. I told you so. I told us so. As Ricky from Trailer Park Boys would say, I told us so, I told us so, I told us so. $29.50, baby. Going for $3,000. Don't get too excited, though, because we could see a big retracement. But even at this point, even a 10% retracement, you're still at $2,700. You know, you're still in record territory as far as unprecedented record territory as far as gold is concerned. So anyways, let's just see where it goes. But it means that trouble is afoot, no matter how much they try to paper it over and how much they try to subdue and placate people with these appeals to tribalism. Things are not well, okay? And that's going to become abundantly clear very, very soon. Eventually, everything's going to break, and it's probably going to take just one little teeny-weeny black swan to send the whole thing into a tailspin. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. Maybe it's going to be some shit coin or something, or it's going to be some Wall Street Bets 2.0, you know, something that shorts the market or to counter the shorts in the market, I should say, that just displaces things out of their natural equilibrium and forces a collapse. I don't know, but something is going to break. This is it. This is not normal. Gold is not supposed to be $3,000. If everything was just great from a fiscal point of view, gold would not be $3,000, okay? And the Trump slump clearly had no staying power whatsoever, because we are well beyond the Biden levels in terms of gold price. So something's got to give, my friends. Stock up, CanadianPreparedness.com.